spread the word. Now, when I started doing this work in 16, and I was focusing on the Marchman Act, that statute's been on the books since 1993. But when I
Wow.
started talking about it online, I was getting calls from people. When did you put this is a brand new law? When did this happen? Well, it's been on the books for
30.
16, 20, 20 odd years, and nobody knew about
Hello, everyone. I'm Kat York, and this is the Recovery Catalyst podcast. Welcome to the space dedicated to the real, hopeful journeys of recovery from addiction, trauma, and mental health. I believe that by approaching these heavy topics with curiosity instead of a quest for a cure, we can find deeper understanding and light. My guest today is Mark Astor, a legal expert who sits at the crucial intersection of law and mental health, helping families navigate the complexities of crisis intervention with compassion and purpose. Mark Astor is a partner with his wife, Audra Simovich Astor, at Astor Simovich Law, where they lead a legal team dedicated to helping families in crisis due to mental health disorders, substance abuse, and failed recovery efforts. With a practice focused on crisis intervention, Mark Astor, his wife, and their team are known for using the law not as a shield, but as a tool for healing. From securing emergency guardianships and navigating involuntary treatment laws like Florida's Baker Act and the Marchman Act to work closely with clinical teams and family systems, Mark helps families regain control when a loved one's condition threatens their safety, autonomy, or future. Their work sits at the intersection of law, medicine, and mental health, making them a valuable resource on how legal systems can be leveraged to support recovery and long-term stability. And today we are going to be talking about when love requires action, legal tools families don't know exist, and while legal action, when done ethically and compassionately, can be one of the most loving decisions a family ever makes. And with that, I will welcome Mark.
Good to see you, Kat. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So this is a big topic, and from what I was reading, your law career is decades long, and you
Yes,
didn't.
I'm old. Thank
You're
you.
not old. No, I didn't mean old.
Okay.
I didn't mean old.
Okay, I
No,
look in the
it's
mirror every day and I'm like, I got older.
like
It's all good. Hopefully a
now
little wiser though.
you didn't start here. You started on the opposite side of the courtroom. Hmm?
Well, I started in the criminal arena. I spent I was a student intern in the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office in 1993, and I knew 5 minutes into my first real trial, because as an intern I could try cases, that
Hmm.
I was supposed to be in the courtroom. Um, and they ended up hiring me. So I was full time from 1994 to 1999, where I tried about 200 jury trials, from
Wow.
everything from petty theft to capital murder, which is a ridiculous amount of trial work in that kind of time frame. That's a
Yeah,
lot of trials in a very brief period of time.
that's insane. You're saying 5 years and like 200 trials. That's insane.
Yeah, I was in trial all the time. Almost every week I was always in trial. I was there to
Wow.
try cases, and that's where I cut my teeth, and I wasn't there to just collect a paycheck. I wanted to become a good trial lawyer. And the way to do it is to try more cases.
And what was the turnaround for you where you decided to kind of switch avenues with your career?
Well, I think after 5 years, and especially, cat the last 18 months, where I was in a felony trial division, and I was always in trial, and they were first and secondary felonies, which are very serious crimes. And so I always had either the victim of a violent crime, or I
Mhm.
had the family of a decedent if it was a murder case. And so I took that responsibility very seriously, because you can't sort of unring the bell. You can get a family some justice and closure. And
Right.
that was a feeling that really motivated me to work very hard. So I typically worked late at night and on weekends. But
Mm,
towards the end, I was really tired. I mean, that's
yeah.
for every hour you're in the courtroom, there's probably about 4 hours of preparation for that 1 hour. So, you do the math. If you're in trial for a week or 2 weeks, that's a lot of prep work.
Yeah.
So, I left and I did some criminal defense work. I worked in a family business and I was totally miserable. I made a lot more money, but I was really miserable.
Hmm.
I got married at 34. I was divorced at 35, so I had a very brief, 1 year marriage.
Hmm.
And it sent me on a bit of a tailspin in terms of figuring out, you know, was I really happy? And I decided I wasn't. And so it really, up until about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I started the law firm, I spent a lot of time, energy, and money on trying to figure out my life.
Hmm. That's a hard place to be. I mean, a
Hmm.
lot of people would equate money with happiness, like, oh, he's making all this money and
Oh,
he's
I had all the material things. And
yeah.
eventually what happened was because I was unhappy, the universe took it all away,
Hmm.
all of it.
What was that like for you? What was that moment for you like?
Um, I don't know. I mean, to maybe fill in some blanks here for some of the folks that are going to watch this,
Mm,
I'd spent a year in DC. So in
mm,
2004, I went to DC.
mm,
It was right after my divorce, and I really, really wanted to go back to school. So I went back to school, got a master's in law.
mm,
I also worked on a presidential campaign for a whole year. So
mm,
that was an amazing experience.
mm.
But unfortunately, the candidate I worked for didn't win, so I had to come home. In
Right.
2013,
Yeah.
I ran off to California for 3 years.
Yeah.
I ran off to, I think, I'm not sure I was running away from Florida or running to California, but run I did.
Hmm.
Um, and I spent 3 years there just enjoying the bachelor life,
Yeah.
and failing the California bar exam. I failed
Yeah.
it twice while I was out there. After 3 years, I ran out of money. I had to come home.
Right.
So I studied for the California bar one final time. I sat down in the local library here in Boca Raton, where I live,
Mm.
studied for the bar exam, flew back, took it, came home, and 8 weeks later found out that I'd gotten within a percentage point, but still failed it.
Wow.
And I said, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to be in California. So my ego was bruised too, because I'd spent at that point about a year studying for the California bar exam. And I think
Yeah.
I studied full time for the Florida bar for about 3 weeks and passed it first time.
Mm.
So I was very frustrated. And then, and then I met somebody that completely changed the course of my life. So I got invited to a breakfast meeting down in Coral Gables, which is about an hour and a half south of where I live.
Mm.
So it was a 7:30 meeting. So I was up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to get there. And truthfully, I wasn't even going to go, but for some reason, Kat, I had a really strong feeling in my gut that I needed to go to this. And
Mm.
it turned out to be the right decision. The guy that was speaking, his name is R. John Robbins, and he founded a company called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And
Mm.
what they do is they teach lawyers the one thing that no law student at any law school anywhere in this country learns, and that is the business side of practicing law. And I watched him speak to a group of about 20 lawyers, and of course they were very rude to him because, I mean, let's be honest, most lawyers are assholes anyway. Sorry for the language, but it's the truth.
That's okay. You're fine.
That's why nobody likes us, because most
Mm.
most lawyers are obnoxious, right?
Yeah.
And they have, they know everything, even the stuff they don't know. They know that too.
Yeah.
And of course, he spoke to them about the business side of practicing law, which obviously none of them knew about because they'd never learned it in law school, but yet they challenged him. Well, I had a different
Right.
attitude because I came from my dad was an entrepreneur. My dad left school at 14 and my mother
Mm.
left school at 16. So me going to law school was a very big deal,
Right.
because nobody had ever even finished high school. But my dad was an entrepreneur. He built businesses. Some worked, some didn't, some made money, and towards the end of his life, some did not make money, and he lost a lot of money. But
Right.
the idea of being an entrepreneur or a lawyer really resonated with me. And long story short is, I'm after the conversation, his thing, I begged him for a job, and he ended up hiring me. So I spent a year there learning all about the business side of practicing law. But
Mm.
what I didn't realize when I went to work for his company was at their very core, they are a personal growth company for lawyers. And if there's any
Mm.
profession that needs personal growth, it is most certainly the legal profession.
Mm.
Um, and they believe that financial growth must be preceded by personal growth.
Mm.
And I learned two very important things there for the year I spent there. Number one, I, I had to take 100% responsibility for my life, both personally and professionally. That's why I was broke and why I had nobody special in my life, really, since I'd gotten divorced. And the other thing is I had to find a group of people that I could help so I could reignite that passion for being a lawyer again. And I had close family members and friends, Kat, who had these issues. So in February of 2016, without any money, I sat back down in the very same library I'd studied for the bar exam, and I
Mm.
opened up my law firm. And I called as many people as I could fit into an Excel spreadsheet, said, hey, this is what I'm doing. And you got to remember, I hadn't lived in Florida for 3 years. I hadn't practiced law in probably close to 5. And so I just called as many people as I could. I would meet with them for coffee or lunch or whatever it was. I had very cheap business cards made of Vistaprint, and I ran around to treatment centers handing out my business card. And it took 14 months before anybody called me with a behavioral health case because nobody knew
Mm.
me, and
Mm.
nobody had ever opened up a law firm doing just this kind of work. Now,
Right.
since then, I have a little competition. People have been trying to copy me, stealing stuff off my website and trying to do what we do, but because of my background of the criminal justice system and the other behavioral health laws that I operate under, I mean, they're trying, but they're not able to do what we do. But I'm okay with that because there's more people than I can possibly help. So if other lawyers are out there, they want to help people, I support that. Um, in any event, so in the meantime, I took other kinds of cases because I had bills to pay. I took
Right.
My first case was a student athlete here in Central Florida, got himself in a bit of hot water with a female student.
Mm.
I took criminal cases. I took family law cases that I co-counseled with a friend from law school because I didn't know much about family law.
Mm.
And 11 months in, my father unexpectedly passed away. So I
Mm.
had to scramble to pay for a funeral. That was fun. Um, and by the end of that year, I had enough to get a small executive, like a Regis, an office, an executive suite, which ironically we still have.
Mm.
And in 2017, I met my wife, my now wife. And ironically, she actually had lived in Massachusetts for a dozen years with husband number one, where she had her children.
Mm.
And she came back down to South Florida after she got divorced. And my wife is a brilliant, brilliant lawyer. And she had a background in guardianship. And,
Mm.
guardianship is traditionally had always been used for elderly people. And if you speak to lawyers, if you speak to an estate planning lawyer, they'll probably tell you we can't do what we do. No, you can't do
Mm.
guardianship for people with behavioral health issues. My wife literally wrote the book on how to use guardianship for behavioral health
Mm.
patients. And so we worked together for the next 7 years,
Mm.
8 days a week, 25 hours a day, and we did everything: sales, marketing, meeting with clients, drafting pleadings, running to court, all of that stuff. And it's only been the last 3 years where the business really took off, where we've hired
Mm.
staff, and we are now a team of 15 people,
Wow.
which is great, which means I can sit here and I don't have to stress about the phone ringing because I have other people that answer the phone. But it
Right.
has taken us 10 and a half years to get here. And I've worked
Yeah.
very hard and been able to support my family. And so my wife and I finally got married 2.5 years ago, despite the
Congratulations.
fact when I met her in 2017 and said to her that I would never get married again, that I was a confirmed bachelor after my prior bad experience. But it turns out, Kat, that marrying my wife is the single best decision I've ever made. And the
I love
second best
that.
decision is not even a close second. So I couldn't have done this without her. So
I love that.
that is the Reader's Digest version of my life. I
I love
really,
that.
I'll be 60 in January, and I would tell
Mm.
you without question, I did not get my act together, either professionally or personally, until about 11 years ago, right?
Mm.
When I finally decided it was time to put my big boy pants on and go and do my own thing.
Yeah.
But it's been a grind. But we're very successful. We do this better
Mm.
than anybody else. And we help families from all over the country who have adult children, with a long history of drug use,
Mm.
treatment that doesn't work. They're probably med non-compliant.
Mm.
Um, they probably don't go to treatment. They're in denial. They've probably been a
Right.
guest of the state through either the criminal justice system or the mental health system, and maybe even an overdose. And they
Yeah.
call us to fix that problem. And that's what we do.
Yeah. And these are very complex issues that you're dealing with. These aren't this isn't like petty crime. You're dealing with complex, mental health issues, substance abuse issues. And there's obviously, I think we can agree there's a gap in the system, to help people who struggle with mental health and substance abuse. And sometimes, from what I've seen, that more harm can be done to individuals if they're just thrown in jail, thrown in prison. Um, Now, would you say a goal of yours is to keep people out of prison as far as like if they need help versus just kind of like throwing them away?
Yeah. So, Kat, when I was a prosecutor back in the 90s, we didn't have what we now call diversionary courts. So we didn't have
Hmm.
drug court or mental health court or veterans courts. We didn't have courts where certain individuals with, if they were either a veteran or had a behavioral health issue, where we could sort of direct them out of sort of the conveyor belt to jail and prison and into
Right,
treatment, right? The idea being you complete the treatment, the charges get dropped, and then you can, hopefully because you're getting treatment and you continue with it, right? You're not going to
right,
come back. That's the goal here, right?
right,
But in the 90s, when I was a prosecutor, we didn't have those diversionary courts. And the
right.
mandate, even today, in Florida, is to punish first and rehabilitate second. Well,
Mm,
if somebody keeps coming back, which folks with behavioral health issues do if they're
mm,
untreated, if they
right,
keep coming back and there's nowhere else to send them, then invariably there's no choice. They just lock them up for as long as they can. What else, there's
yeah,
nothing else that can be done.
yeah,
So that's what we did back in the 90s. We locked people up. Now we still lock
yeah,
people up today in Florida, but we've gotten better at handling behavioral health issues. But
yeah,
I tell every family, if you've got a loved one with an issue,
yeah,
there are options available. Number
mm,
one, they can make the decision to go to treatment. Well, if they've got a long-standing behavioral health issue, they're not going to go to treatment. And if they do, they're not going
right,
to stay. They're going to take
right,
their medications. They're probably in complete denial. Their life is in chaos. So
right,
if they can't make the decision to save themselves, because that is part and parcel of the disease, right? I tell families as if their mind had been hijacked or kidnapped. If they
right,
can't make the decision to save themselves, well, who's going to do it? Well,
mm,
one option is the state, and the state can do it one of two ways:
yeah,
the criminal justice system, as you correctly pointed out, or the mental health system. And in my experience, the state does not do a very good job of taking care of people who have behavioral health issues, either through the criminal justice system or the mental
mm,
health system. Well,
right,
if they can't save themselves and the state does a lousy job, so we don't want the state stepping in, then is the family ready to make the commitment, right? Which is where
right,
I come in, right? I use the civil end of the judicial system to get the family authority to make the decision their loved one cannot make. And that
right,
could include anything just as simple as getting an emergency order to pick somebody up, get them off the streets, and get them into
mm,
a place of stability for 72 hours, followed
right,
by let's put them into treatment for 3 months, which we can repeat, to
right,
I need access to their medical records. I want to control their finances so I can pay their rent, make their car payment, also so
right,
they don't take their money and, you know, blow through it. But I might
right,
also want to be able to have access to the medical records so I can see what's going on. I might want to restrict their ability to travel so they don't get on a plane on leave, which can happen and has happened.
right,
Um, right? All those types of things. What do you really want? How much control do you want? And are you ready to make the commitment? Because if the family's not ready to make it for a myriad of reasons,
right,
well, then this is going to continue. It's a
right,
progressive disease and it will eventually destroy your loved one and your
yeah,
family with it. But
yeah,
but the families that are watching this cat, they know that because they're
yeah,
experiencing it every day. It's why the mom and dad are fighting. It's why the siblings have moved out because they can't stand to be around it.
yeah. And you pointed out, you said something that I like. They're like their brain has been hijacked, by either substances or mental health or both.
Yeah.
And getting them on, like you said, like this conveyor belt to prison, in and out, is only causing more harm, trauma, worsening their condition. And so you step in when the families are said they've had enough, they can't do it, and you get access um, to figure out the best course of action for this individual. And what is, I imagine it's kind of a fine line. Like, where does the line draw between like control versus protection? And what is it? I mean, is that like a more of a gray area as far as like how do you slowly bring the person back into control of their lives?
Well, so what I mean, it depends. the lawyer's two favorite words are it depends. So, I mean, the work that we're doing, Kat, is very much a shield, meaning we're doing it to try and help them. And sometimes making the decision for them to go to treatment and be med compliant and all those other things that are we associate recovery is
Right.
part and parcel of protecting them. Now, if we're filing for guardianship, which we sometimes do, that's going to involve a lot more control, right? Access to medical records, ability to control their finances, the restricted ability to travel, who they spend time with, where they live, those types of things. But not
Right.
every case warrants that.
Right.
Sometimes, and this really applies with the Marchman Act, we're just simply getting an order that says Mark is going to treatment for the next 3 months. But mom and dad
Right.
don't get access to my medical records unless I agree to it. They don't get control of my money or restrict my ability to travel. Right?
Right.
It's a very narrow form of relief. It's an order that says I'm going to treatment, and if I don't do what the order says, well, there are consequences for that. There's accountability, and that would probably involve a conversation with the judge, which is a little bit
Right.
different from you're going to treatment. It's probably going to
Right.
involve you're either going to treatment or you're going to jail, but you don't walk away from this
Right.
because at some point somebody has to make the decision for this person, and there
Right.
has to be some accountability for them, and there has to be a safety net for the family. There has to be someone they can go to, like a judge, to say, Your Honor, Mark's not doing his treatment. If Mark doesn't do his
Right.
treatment, this is going to continue and he might die. So we
Right.
need to protect him from himself. And at
Right.
some point, if I stay in treatment long enough, that's clinically appropriate, 3, 6 months, the light bulb typically goes off. Oh,
Mm.
okay, I get it. Now I'm thinking clearly. You're right. I need treatment. Thank you for saving me. I'm back. But it doesn't happen overnight, Kat. Recovery's a
No.
journey. It's not a destination. And I do not have a magic pill, but I'm the
No.
catalyst. I get it all. I get you on that road. Now we got to
Mm.
stay on it.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
No, and I imagine that's a heavy weight to carry sometimes. Um,
It is, but when you see it happen, it's really quite remarkable. That's the feeling, right? That's the good feeling. And I love also building my business because if I build my law firm, I can help more people.
yeah. Is there is it harder to get help for someone with 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 say a mental health disorder or substance abuse? Is
You
it
know,
does it differentiate?
yeah, that's such a good question, Kat. So when I started doing this work back in early 2016, I would tell you that my focus was really on people who had substance use issues, typically alcohol, some type of other recreational type of substance. It wasn't until I met my wife in 17 that I realized there was a, different option here. I mean, I was really just taking criminal cases and I
Mm,
was taking, those primary substance use cases and I was using the Marchman Act to get those people into treatment.
right,
And while we started doing some guardianship work, I can't tell you that it was a lot. Most of the cases were Marchman Acts, but two
right,
things really changed the kind of cases that we get. Number one was COVID.
mm,
And number two was the legalization of marijuana, which I would tell you
mm,
has been an unmitigated disaster from a behavioral health standpoint. I'm sure whenever I post stuff like this on my YouTube channel, I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I want to be free to do whatever I want." Listen, if you want to sit inside your house all day long and smoke and fry your brain, good luck to you.
yeah,
But it's a very different conversation when you're doing that and you have mom and dad and people that love you that want to save you from frying your brain.
yeah,
So our cases took this big shift from these sort of recreational drug type cases to, primary mental illness.
mm. You mentioned marijuana and living in Massachusetts, it is legal, and now they're trying to get it back on the ballot to reverse that because of so many reasons.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's interesting. I was reading an article about a couple of months ago, Kat, where in Colorado, one of our more liberal states, they legalized marijuana. It's interesting. My wife and I were in Denver about a year ago for a conference, and everywhere we went, we could smell weed. It's just the whole
Yeah,
place
yeah,
smelled like a giant bong.
yeah,
I'm not being critical. I'm just telling you what happened. And New York was
no,
the same way. It
yeah,
smelled the weed everywhere we went.
yeah, no,
And now what's happening is that they are having a serious problem in Denver, especially in Colorado,
mm,
because the marijuana of today is not the marijuana of the 80s when I grew up in England. It's
no,
really potent stuff.
yeah,
And now they're having a mental health crisis in Colorado. And guess what? They don't have the funds to help all these people and get them treatment. So
Mm,
you have a whole bunch of people running around who have severe mental illness that's been fueled by this new legalized marijuana. And they,
mm,
if they don't have financial resources or health insurance, guess what? They're not getting any help.
right. No,
That's
that's a good no, that's
horrible. I think it's terrible. I think a lot of the states were very short-sighted. They said, "Oh, okay, listen, we can make a lot of money from this legalized marijuana."
yeah,
Yeah, but look what's happened. It's like you detonated a nuclear bomb. The
yeah,
fallout is horrendous.
yeah. No, I live near literally in like a 3 mile radius, three of them. And you can go into a store and it's like getting punched in the face with like the smell of weed. And I'm like, this is insane. And like you pointed out, it's become more dangerous. It's not like the marijuana that was around in the 60s or the 70s. It's very high octane. It's mixed with things. It's laced. You don't really know where it's coming from. Um, it's very, very dangerous. Like you said, it exacerbates existing mental health issues.
Correct. And if there's any predisposition, guess what? It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. And it's interesting. One of the things we've observed, and a good friend of mine who's a forensic psychologist who works a lot of these cases with me has indicated is, the first time that somebody experiences psychosis is a bit like getting a concussion,
Hmm.
right? The second time you experience psychosis is much easier. It's like the second time you get a blow to the head, it's much easier to get concussed. The
Right,
damage from the first time is still there.
right,
And so what happens is that somebody goes into psychosis and it can take a significant period of time to get them out, months. And if they have even a slight relapse, they slip right back in.
right.
So, I mean, it's a problem. It really is.
Now with weed being legalized in some states, not all. Does that now I forgive me, is it legal in Florida where you are?
It is for medicinal purposes, but
Just
getting a medicinal card is a joke. I mean, it might as well be recreational at this point.
yeah, you just go online and yeah, it's very, very basic. Does that make your what you do harder when marijuana is legalized?
Well, I just think we're seeing a lot more mental health cases, Kat, and it's really narrowed down the number of facilities that we work with. I mean, I can think of there's only three facilities that I would work with here in Florida as a general rule, and
Hmm.
maybe a fourth if we're in a pinch. But these are facilities that can handle a primary mental illness case and a primary substance use case, because typically you're both, right?
Hmm.
When I first started doing this, back in 16, you had facilities that were licensed
Right,
um, for primary substance use and they could do mental health issues secondary. Well, that's no longer the case. I mean, you
right,
have to be able to handle a primary mental health case. And,
right,
and sometimes it's chicken or egg, what came first?
yeah,
Sometimes I don't know the answer to that, and sometimes it doesn't matter. I just got to get them into
right,
treatment and let the clinicians figure out what came first and the appropriate way to treat it. I'm
right.
not a clinician. I'm not, and I don't pretend to be one, but I can help you to get your loved one into treatment and keep them there long enough in a clinically appropriate facility.
Why do you think that maybe some family systems don't know that there are these resources, but like your law firm out there to help them?
Yeah, I think that's another great question, Kat. I mean, I think people, first of all, the laws that we have here in Florida, especially the Marchman Act, and the way we apply them is really unique to Florida. I was just in California 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and I was talking to somebody out there who works who places people into treatment, and he said we have nothing like this here. We not
Right,
even close in California. And
right,
I've talked to a lawyer in Pennsylvania. Again, even getting guardianship. So we have we have our main guardianship statute, and we also have sort of a subset of that is you can also, as an add-on, file for emergency temporary guardianship. So instead of taking 4 to 6 weeks to get a guardianship, I can get you into court within 2 to 4 days and get you a temporary 90-day order. Now here in
right,
Florida, I don't need an expert. I don't need a clinician to come with me. I might just put one of the parents on to testify. Well, in
right.
Pennsylvania, you need an expert to come in and testify even to get a temporary guardianship. Well,
Oh,
how does the doctor do the assessment? You're dealing with somebody who's, for all intents and purposes, living in a different universe who says there's nothing wrong with them. Why would they waste any time speaking to the doctor? They're fine. So
right.
the assessment never gets done, and the parents never get
Hmm.
temporary guardianship. The
Gotcha.
case doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
So here in Florida is a great place to bring somebody or get somebody here, not just because we have great treatment, but I have laws that enable you to get control of the situation and get them into treatment and keep them there long enough. And then they can go back home and continue with treatment when they're stable and able to appreciate their need for treatment. But otherwise, so a lot of people outside of Florida don't know that we have these amazing laws and we have great treatment down here. Part of my mission, Kat, has been to spread the word. So I love talking to people like you who are gracious enough to have me as a guest. But I also put out a ton of content. I put out 3 videos a day. I have
Yeah.
1,200 videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
I just wrote a book all about the Marchman Act, and if folks go to my website, they can download it for free, or they can, for a few dollars, go buy it on Amazon if they want
Right.
to, the paperback version. So my
Right.
mission has been to spread the word. Now, when I started doing this work in 16, and I was focusing on the Marchman Act, that statute's been on the book since 1993. But when I
Wow.
started talking about it online, I was getting calls from people. When did you put this is a brand new law? When did this happen? Well, it's been on the books for
30.
16, 20, 20 odd years, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
So I very rarely get a call now saying I never heard of the Marchman Act. Now they call and say,
Right.
"Oh, I didn't know there was a law firm who did this and only this." Because
Yeah.
even my competition is sort of dabbling in other stuff. Well, that's fine, but I'm not a jack of all trades, right? I don't
Right.
believe in that for any profession, but especially for the legal profession. So
Right.
families will find me, and I will tell you, Kat, most of our clients who are families, mums and dads, are not in
Mm.
Florida. I've had clients from Hawaii and California. I've had
Mm.
calls from Oregon, the Midwest, all the way up that New England corridor where you live, New York, New
Right.
Jersey, Mass.
Right.
Um, and I'm actually bought up there. So we do get some calls from up there too. But part of what I do is saying, hey, you know what? I'm here in Florida. I can help you. And I can figure out how to get your loved one down here so we can get them assessed and stabilized and they can begin treatment. And then they can go back to wherever they came from and finish up there.
Mm.
So bringing awareness to the solution is it's definitely an uphill battle. And 10 and a half years, we're doing better. But again, people just don't know about what we do.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to you for helping me to spread the word a little bit. Thank you for that.
Well, I'm grateful to you for being here because I can't even, it would take two hands to tell you all the people I've lost to drug addiction, mental health, suicide. And so anything that helps get the word out there that there are options available for families, because families so often with addiction feel helpless and burnt out and just torn apart.
Yeah. By the time they get to me, they're exhausted.
Yeah.
They've been dealing with it for a long time. They're tired and they probably spent money already. And maybe it's on
Yeah.
treatment that didn't work for whatever reason. And there's a myriad of reasons why treatment doesn't work.
Right.
They went down some type of legal pathway and for whatever reason, again, they say, well, it doesn't work, whatever that means. Right.
Right.
So, folks are tired. The one
Yeah.
question I ask every family that I ever speak to is, when was the last time that you had a good night's sleep? And they invariably give me the same answer. They
Yeah.
don't remember the last time they had a good night's sleep because every
Yeah.
night they go to bed wondering if they're going to get that phone call. They're
Yeah.
frightened and they're tired and they're looking for answers.
And that's a terrifying place to be because because when you're dealing with an individual who has substance abuse and mental health, it's not long when homelessness will follow, lose your job, you lose your friends, you lose your community support, and then they just go off the radar. And then it's like, and I mean, what do you do? And I guess that would be my question. Are if you're are you able to deal with a situation where someone is homeless? Is that just
Yeah, I
out of
mean,
the
sometimes we
scope?
have to go find them. I mean, if there's a family there that has the ability to get somebody into treatment and they have resources and I mean, we use county facilities sometimes if we have to, but
Right.
yeah, sometimes we have to go find somebody. It was interesting when I first started doing this work and I filed the case, the clerk, would say, where is this person located? If you can't give me an exact address, we won't accept the case. So it never got
Hmm.
to a judge. I have a retired cop on staff and a team of investigators, and they're really good at finding people. And
Oh,
so what started to happen is I said to the clerk, I said, look, I know they're in the county, so we have jurisdiction. I said, do me a favor. I said, I'll find the person, get this file in front of the judge. Let me worry about finding them. I'll find them. I'll get you an address, but I need a court order because if I don't get a court order, and I find them, the law enforcement's not going to be able to grab them. I need that
right.
court order for the police to have the ability to grab them and get them to a place of safety. And
Right.
now these days, I mean, they know we'll go find them. So,
And what are the requirements for some of the things that when a family comes to you that they need to have when they call you? Are there certain requirements?
well, I mean, obviously, as lawyers, I got to worry about making sure I can prove the case, right? I have to make sure I have, sufficient evidence, but I'm also governed by rules of evidence and substantive law and procedure.
Mm,
So, part of our triaging of a case is when a family calls us, it's not just asking, what's been going on and how long and what have you tried. The bigger picture or the bigger issue is how do you know this has been going on? Because sometimes, like you said, Kat, folks are not, maybe they're not living at home, maybe they are on the streets. And,
mm,
parents are saying, well, they're using, or there's this, or there's that. And the question I ask is, how do you know? Right. And
right,
it's not because I'm trying to challenge them, it's because I'm trying to make sure I have evidence and that I can prove the case. Because if
right,
they're going to say to me, well, so and so told me, and so and so is not willing to come in as a witness, that statement that somebody told you is not going to be admissible. It's not going to
right,
come in. The court's not
right,
going to accept that. It's going to get excluded. So I got to make sure that we have evidence and that we can present that evidence to the court. Do we have
right,
witnesses? Right? Have they
right.
have they made admissions? Have you seen them using? Have you found evidence in the house? Maybe it's empty bottles if they're an alcoholic. Maybe there's pills. Maybe there's, you know, evidence of marijuana use in the house, right?
Mm,
Maybe they have been involuntarily committed to a to either a county facility or a state hospital on
mm,
more than one occasion. So we have a history of mental health issues, and
right,
we have a history of not taking medications and getting arrested and being
right,
out in the streets. Okay, now we have a case that we can present.
right,
So we got to make sure we can prove the case. And if we can't, my team knows we don't have enough evidence here. So let's talk about a different option because maybe the legal option is just not the right fit, right? And if
right,
we can't help you, my team will tell you we can't help you. Here's a
right,
different option. Sometimes an intervention is a great option, and I'm a
right,
fan of interventions.
right,
If it's done by somebody who's actually qualified to do it, not somebody
right.
who took an 8-hour course online and then says they're an interventionist. I mean somebody
No,
who's got a
that's
master's degree or a
right,
doctoral degree and has
right,
thousands and thousands of hours of experience doing this,
right.
right? Who's actually a real clinician who can do the intervention, not a,
Yeah,
here today, gone tomorrow interventionist. And, you know, that's fine. It's just not for me, right? If
no,
you want an interventionist, I'm going to give you somebody that is actually qualified to do a real intervention. And sometimes an intervention cat can be a very gentle way to get somebody into treatment. And I can
right,
still do what I need to do to make sure they stay because
right,
there's going to treatment and they're staying in treatment, right? And
right,
if you go and leave and go and leave and go and leave, well, then you're going to continue going and leaving, and the family's going to continue getting frustrated and tell me the treatment doesn't work.
right. Now, do you run into issues where sometimes it is the wrong treatment facility? And how do you find the right treatment facility?
Well, so when it comes to treatment, there's sort of two ways that they come to us. A family will typically say to us, "Oh, I'm working with XYZ treatment center." Okay, I mean, I know for the most part if it's a facility that I'm going to work with, right? I mean, here in Florida, there's not that many good ones left because the bad ones were all shut down
Hmm.
um, a couple of years ago. So I sort of know who the good players are. If they say, "Well, look, I'm working with this treatment center," okay, that sounds good. I'm okay with those guys. They do a good job. Okay. Or let's say they come to me and they say, "Well, I don't have a facility. I can make a recommendation, or if you want, I can refer you to one of the two clinicians that I like to work with and say, hey, why don't you call Dr. So and so?
Hmm.
Have a conversation with him about where he thinks is clinically appropriate,
Hmm.
and you can hire him to find the right place to do a sort of an initial assessment and to sort of case manage, to be there with us on the journey." And some families will do that. That works well for them because now they have a whole team around them. Again, you're going to have the
Right.
resources to do this, Kat. But
Yeah.
I if it's one of the things my wife and I spend a lot of time doing, not
Hmm.
just in Florida, but we were in California and we were in Utah, is going to facilities, visiting facilities, and seeing them and
Hmm.
meeting with the clinical team. I want to know who these
Right.
people are, right? If
Right.
I haven't seen the facility and I'm not going to refer you to a treatment center I've never been to. I mean, I'll
Right.
refer you to one I like to refer to facilities. One, I know the folks that work there. We have a history with them. I know
Right.
they do good work, right?
Right.
And it's located in a county that's friendly to this kind of stuff because not all counties do a great job with these cases, in
Right.
which case it might exclude certain causes of action. I may not file one case, but I might file another one because I know that the facility, there's very limited resources. I'm going to be stuck using a county facility that's going to do a
Mhm.
lousy job for me, which means I'm not going to
Right.
get the result from the client. And at the end of the
Right.
day, my goal is to get their loved one into treatment and keep them there long enough. And
Right.
if I can't do that, then maybe we need to figure out a different path to get a successful outcome. Because I really want to get this right the first time.
Right. Because I imagine because for a lot of these families, it's not the first time they're trying to deal with this. By the time they've come to you, as you've stated, they're exhausted and
Well, by
worn
the time they
out.
come to by the time they come to me, yeah, I'm sort of the last port of call. I'm the 911 of the legal profession.
Right.
That's typically what happens. So, um, so normally there's a history. I do get calls where people have not been, in treatment yet, but it's not very often. It's normally they've
Hmm.
been in and they've, for whatever reason, the treatment didn't work. They were in, they were out, or, a lot of the time there's sort of this, I call it the honeymoon phase. And what I
Right.
mean by that is they'll go for 7 to 10 days. And
Hmm.
then as soon as the hard work starts, they bounce, they leave, right? They all of a
Hmm.
sudden they had to go to group or they had to do a one-on-one with a therapist or clinician and start to talk about what's really causing these problems. And they don't
Hmm.
want to have that conversation. And
Hmm.
then, you know, things go south. So they leave.
Yeah.
And they,
Right.
they go through this phase of in and out, in and out. And then when the parents call me and say, well, treatment doesn't work. Well, okay, what does that mean it doesn't work? Right?
Right.
I mean, look, if you send someone to treatment over and over again for 7 to 10 days, then yeah, it's almost certainly not going to work, and you're going to continue to deal with this. So part of the triage process is finding out like what's worked, why did it work, what hasn't worked, and why didn't it work?
Right.
Okay,
And these are very complex issues that you're dealing with. I mean, because each person comes with their own individual set of circumstances and backgrounds and history. And I'm
yeah,
curious, have you seen it where when you're working with an individual who's really struggling, you get them into treatment, that they've been appreciative not only of what you and your firm have done, but their family, like where they understood?
yeah, yeah. I have. I've seen a couple of. I had one person actually after I put her into treatment, he kept her there. She referred her boyfriend to me. Yeah, I've had it where I'm like, I'm the devil incarnate, right? And
Right.
then 3 months later, 6 months later, it's like a totally different person. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell families, because sometimes they'll say, well, they'll say, Mark, I've tried talking to, this person about going to treatment and they're in denial. And my response is, yeah, I know it looks like them, sounds like them, and it walks like them, and it's the proverbial duck. But it is
Yeah.
not them that's running the show. Their
Right.
mind has been hijacked by their
Yeah.
disease.
Right.
And the disease is going to fight like hell not to go to treatment, because if you go send them to treatment, the disease could, in theory, go into remission, or as we call it, recovery. So yeah,
Right.
right. That's what's running the show. So don't think of this as your loved one, even though it
Mm.
looks like them. Think of this as the disease. In order to get your loved one back, right? Also,
Right.
and they will materialize, but it will take time. We got to
Right.
get them into treatment. We got to, start working on their mind, their body, their spirit, all of that stuff. But it's going to take a
Yeah.
little time. Right. I
Yeah.
tell every family plan for a year, not necessarily needing me for a year, although
Right.
sometimes we're on a case for a year. Cat, we may not be actively working and billing the file, but
Right.
we're there in the background. We're there as the
Yeah.
safety net. And if the court needs us, we come. And
Right.
hopefully we're not needed. But sometimes a relapse is part of the recovery journey. Sometimes a
Right.
person does use again. Sometimes they do experience psychosis again. Sometimes they do walk out of treatment. Okay, how
Right.
do we handle that? What are we going to do? Because I
Right.
can't just say, oh, well, doesn't work. No,
Right.
recovery is a bit like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, right? Good
Right.
days, bad days. Good days, relapse. Good days, walked out of treatment. But over time, if you stick with the stock market, the trajectory is up. That's
Yeah.
recovery. Over time,
Yeah.
recovery happens.
Yeah.
But you got to
No.
stay the course, right? You put your money in the stock market, it goes down. You can't say, well, stock market doesn't work. Nobody gets rich. If you stick to it long enough and you keep putting money in, right? And
Yeah.
you keep working the recovery process, the result
Yeah.
comes invariably.
Yeah. No, I mean, your recovery is not, it's not a one size fits all, and it
It's
is
not.
not, no, it's not cookie cutter, and you're gonna, not everybody, but a lot of people do relapse, go back out again. So it's not, the trajectory isn't just you get sober and then it's all the way up. It's up and down, as you stated. And I am curious, like when you see a success story, when you see a client and they're really getting the help they need, they're really applying themselves. What is that like for you and your firm to see that?
Well, it's that reward, right? It's that rewarding feeling. It's that feel good feeling. It's a really special feeling, and that's why I do the work. It's
And
that
that's because
feeling.
I was looking on your TikTok channel, and you have a lot of great videos up there, which is another
Yeah,
great resource for people.
yeah. I post like 2 or 3 videos every day, Kat, and I
Mhm.
base them on my experience.
Right,
Because look, anybody can go. You can go read the Marchman Act statute. You can go read the Baker
right,
Act statute. Probably read it every bit as well as me, if not better.
right.
But I've spoken to thousands of families over the years. Will venture to bet it's probably close to 10,000 families over the years.
Hmm.
I've learned a thing or two, and we
Yeah,
filed. I think we're way over 1,000 cases that we have filed of all sorts.
hmm,
I mean, all over the state of Florida.
yeah,
And you learn a little bit about how the system really works and how does it work in Miami-Dade compared to, say, Orlando or
right,
Tallahassee or Tampa,
yeah,
right? How does it work? Because it works different in every county. Well,
yeah,
if you've never filed cases in most of those counties, well, then you'll never know how it works, right? Why would I maybe not file a case in one county and I would in another? Or why would I file a
right.
different case in that county? I mean, there's reasons for that. And that just comes from knowing how the different counties handle things.
No, I'm listening to you talk about all these logistics, and I'm like, all these tabs are opening in my head. I'm like, oh my God, like just from like counties, and I'm like, this has got to be so, it's so complex that talking to you, I don't think people really can realize how complex it is. And
It is. That's why you probably, if you're going to try to get a loved one into treatment, I get families all the time. Not all the time, maybe that's not the right word. Regularly, you say, "Oh, I just got to go to the courthouse and file this myself." Okay, let me know how that works out for you. 1 out of 10 is going to get somebody into treatment, and that one person, if their loved one leaves, is not going to be able to get them back in because they won't know how to enforce the court order. And
right,
if you're filing for Marchman Act or guardianship, um, for guardianship, you're going to need a lawyer because the guardian has to be
yeah,
represented by counsel. But
right,
these are complicated, and your loved one is going to get a lawyer, an attorney appointed to represent them. Well, if you
right,
don't have a lawyer and your loved one does, and it's somebody who's very experienced handling those cases, what are your chances of actually winning that case? Somewhere
not
between
good.
slim and none. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it can't be done. I'm not saying I haven't seen it done. I'm saying it's very, very few and far between.
yeah,
So if you want to get it right, why not make that commitment and get it right the first time?
right. No, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to begin, which is why I'm thankful that there's individuals like you who are out there. And from hearing from you, you're kind of a pioneer in this field, focusing solely on what you do. And sometimes, as you stated, people are trying to kind of steal your model, like what you do. And I'm curious, have you ever faced criticism for what you do, for the kind of work that you do? Do people have like, oh, you're doing too much of this, you're too controlling, or you're enabling,
Well,
or
yeah, sometimes if I post a video about, criticizing the whole marijuana thing, or now these days it's kratom and more gas
mm,
station, opioids, people get
mm,
upset. Well, it's draconian what you're doing. You're taking away people's rights.
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I'm taking away their rights for a very brief period of time so I can save their life. And then I'm going to give them back. They can have
yeah,
their rights. But if we don't, at some point, there has to be a balance between their rights and our ability to save them.
right,
Surely we are civilized to the point where we can see the distinction, right? Which is why we have a judicial
right,
process. That's why we have a
right,
judge review these things, right? Are we not at the point where we can make a decision to save somebody who can't save themselves? I think we
yeah,
are. And I think it's
yeah,
okay to take away those rights for a period of time and then give them back, right? It's not a
yeah,
permanent thing. It's not forever. right?
Right.
Somebody ends up overdosing and dies. That's forever.
Yeah.
A family's destroyed. That's forever.
Yeah.
So for a brief period of time, we're going to take away some rights
Yeah.
because they're not capable of exercising those rights anyway. So
No.
what are they really missing here?
Yes. No, and so, as sometimes, being in 2026, I'm still surprised that we are where we are, not having the resources available or not even knowing about firms like yours that do this work. It's mind-blowing that you would think that I thought by now would be farther along in how we approach individuals and help individuals. And it seems sometimes we get even farther away from where like we should be, in terms of helping them and having the resources for them.
Yeah, that is a long conversation maybe for a
Yeah.
different day, Kat.
No,
I
no, yeah, of
you would
course.
think in this country in 2026 we would have the resources to take care of everybody and make clinically appropriate treatment available to
Yeah.
everybody. I do know, and there's been some um there's been quite a bit of news about, I guess, Robert Kennedy Jr., who is, the Health and Human Services Secretary,
Mm,
has been openly saying, we're going to throw millions of dollars at this problem to make treatment available to everybody. And I think that sounds great. But
mm,
as we have seen in states like Minnesota and New York and
mm,
California, not to get critical or political,
mm, mm.
when you throw money at a problem, what happens? You get all kinds of charlatans and thieves coming out of the
Mm,
woodworks, stealing the money. Look what happened in COVID.
mm.
How many people, who had legitimate businesses were filing for COVID relief so they could keep their businesses running, so they could pay their employees? And then,
Right.
there was always this one charlatan who came along and was able to defraud the government, went out and bought a Lamborghini, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, for every one, 10 honest people, right? There's going to be that one charlatan who's going to steal. And that's the
Yeah.
problem. The government's like, oh, well, here's a bunch of money. Yeah, but who's getting it? Some guy that opened
Right.
up a treatment center 5 minutes ago. When I first started doing this work, Kat, I used to get calls 2 or 3 a day. Oh, I have a treatment
Mm,
center. Why don't you come and visit us? Okay, I'll come and see it. I was pretty naive. You go, give me your address. It was an office building with some guy sitting in an office. I'm like, where's the treatment center? Oh, it's down the street. These guys are right. And then we had a federal task force here for 2 years, Cat, cleaning up
mm,
the industry, and 90% of these
mm,
guys went out of business or got arrested.
mm,
So that's the only concern I have is, can we administer the money properly
mm.
to people that can actually use it, and it gets to families who don't necessarily have the resources to pay for good treatment. If we can do
Right.
that, I'm all for it. But if it's going
No.
to invite more thievery, then I think we're just throwing more good money after bad. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, especially when it comes to addiction and mental health, I feel like there's always somebody out there who's trying to, take advantage of, especially the families, in these situations because it is such a delicate time for people and challenging time. And as I'm listening to you talk and I hear the how you started and where you are now, I wonder like what your definition of success would be today versus years ago when you first started out in law.
Well, I think from a business perspective, it's success is the ability for me to not only put food on the table for my family, but for me to make sure that my 15 staff members can put food on the table for their families. I think from a
Mm,
business perspective, right? I mean, the idea is, we grow a business, my staff get to live their best life, they get to, take care of their families, right? And we do that
mm,
by helping other people's families, right? So the focus is help the families grow the business, hire more staff, help more families, right? It's a very
mm,
cyclical thing. So
mm,
the focus is on the mission first.
mm.
That feeds the business. So
Right.
I think from that perspective, I guess on a personal level, I got married 2.5 years ago, remarried. I have two amazing stepchildren. I have a brilliant, amazing wife. And I'm very happy, probably the happiest I've ever been. And
Mm.
so I think for me, that's success, right? I mean,
That's
I'm not one of these. I mean, I like material things as much as the next person, but
right.
I don't need a yacht or a private jet. I mean, and I'm not poo-pooing those. If that's what you want, hey, great, go out and get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My material wants are, then I don't need everything. I have
Right.
a, I live a good life, and
Right.
I'm going to continue to do that and give away as much as I can and help as many people as I can. And that's sort of my mission.
No, you can tell like just by talking to you how important of a mission this is to you.
It is.
Um,
It's, I always tell people, Kat, by saving other people's families, I ended up saving my own.
mm, that's got to be such an enriching. I'm trying to imagine what that would feel like just when you see when you're working with a family and you see like their son or daughter come out of treatment and they're slowly rebuilding back their life, like what that's got to feel like for you and your staff. Um, to see that and be a part of that, be like to know you had a hand in that, you know,
It's
that's got
good.
to be such a beautiful feeling.
It is. And my heart breaks for the families that for whatever reason can't make that commitment, or we start treatment and then they stop, right?
Right,
That is frustrating because I know where that's going.
right. And but there's no doubt you've helped at this point probably thousands of people with what you and your firm has done.
Well, I like to think we've helped a lot of people. Not
Mm,
all of those people became clients. Some of those people just, read a book, read one of my books, or looked at a
right,
video,
right.
or listened to a podcast that I did with somebody like you, Kat, who, was gracious enough to have me on as a guest, right? Don't underestimate how important this conversation is for us because, the one thing I love about social media is we put it out there and it's out there
Mm,
forever. Maybe a mom
yeah,
listens to this 30 days from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now,
right.
right? And they say, wow, thank goodness for that podcast. It changed my life. So
No, it's very
this
powerful.
what you're doing is powerful. It's important. It's important for people like you and me to have these conversations.
It is. It is. And many years ago, I had lost my brother to an overdose. And that's what kind of sparked all this. And to me, it's always been about if there's one person who can hear it and not feel like they're lost or alone or a family is lost and alone, then that's it for me. That's really the goal. And I love social media in the sense that it gets a bad name, but you don't really know like the extent of the positive effect you have on people.
Think about it, right? I make a video, 3 minute video. What
Mm,
did it really, I mean, if we would get in terms of dollars and cents, did it really cost me anything?
no,
Maybe 3 minutes of my time. Then I
right,
upload it to, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, the usual. What did
yeah,
that cost me? I mean, nobody sent me a bill, right? Didn't
right,
cost me anything. And how long's it out there for? Potentially forever, right?
right,
So, you know, 6 months from now, 5 years from now, mom's watching, a video I made for 3 minutes, when I was sipping, having my coffee one morning,
yeah,
and it changes the direction of her life and somebody else in her family's life. And it didn't cost me anything.
I
So I
love
think
that.
we can all afford to give a little bit away, especially when it doesn't cost anything. So
No,
that's my reason for doing the social media stuff because it doesn't really cost me anything. And it could really change the direction of somebody else's life.
yeah,
Why wouldn't
no,
you do
and
it?
yeah. Then once it's out there, it's out there, and um, I love it. I love what you're doing,
Thank you.
and I I have to ask you one final question because you've been so gracious with your time with me here today. To the families out there who may be in these difficult positions, they have a son or daughter, loved one. Um, what's your like suggestion or piece of advice to them?
Well, I think pick up the phone and have a conversation with us.
Mm,
I'll be able to help you, but I may have a resource for you.
mm,
Um, or if you don't want to talk to us, because not everybody wants to call a law firm, Um, go to the website and I can give that in a second. But under
yeah.
resources, I have this brand new book I just launched. And actually, so you can either buy it on Amazon as a
Mm,
paperback, but if you go to the website, you can download it for free. And I think it's 9 chapters, but it's written. And also there's video. So after every
mm,
chapter, I recorded video.
mm,
That cost me money to do it, but it was worth it, right? Because the quality of the video and it's me talking about what you just read. And I
mm,
mean, go down, go and download the book for free, right? And
right.
watch it at night when you're, in bed instead of watching, TV or something. So you
Mm,
can go download the book or watch a podcast that I'm on or, look at the videos. There's 1,200 of them on YouTube. They're all free. So, and I tell every, when I make a video at the end of it, I say, listen, if I haven't made a video about what's going on in your family, post in the comments and I read them all, Cat. And
right.
I've on several occasions, I've made the family post and said, oh, can you make a video about this? Yeah. Next day I made them a video, right?
I
Put it up
love
on
that.
YouTube. Right? I'll make you the video. So
I
if
love
families are
that.
watching this and they're like, oh, he didn't, he didn't make a video about this issue, let me know. Post in the comments because I'm gonna, by the way, I'm gonna share this on my social media too, so everybody else gets to see it on my end.
Oh, thank you. I
You're
appreciate that.
welcome. But post in the comments, right? Let us know. I'll make
Mm,
you a video.
yeah.
Why not?
No,
Doesn't
yeah,
cost me
no,
anything. And I'm more
no,
trying to help you.
and and I did go to your website and I did, download the book you were talking about. And one thing I want to say is that somebody immediately reached out and emailed me,
Yes,
and
they will
so,
do that.
and I just wanted to say, like, and I felt bad. I'm like, oh my God, she probably doesn't,
No,
she
it's
definitely
okay.
doesn't.
They know to call.
And, and I was like, I love that because so often, like you said, lawyers get a bad name. And, it was just nice to be like, oh, wow, like that's like an actual person. It wasn't automated. It was like, it was nice.
It's not automated. No, I have real people that work for us.
I
Um,
love that. I love what you're doing. And I'd
Thank
like
you.
to give you an opportunity to tell people where they can find you, your website, anything that you want to share.
Thank you. So, Kat, the main website is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. That's mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. Or if they just Google my name, Mark
Hmm.
Astor Attorney, you should find me with no problem. Or just actually
And
go to
Mark,
YouTube, probably put my name and you'll find just, all those videos there.
and you have a lot of videos up on TikTok. You're on X and LinkedIn,
Yep. I
Facebook.
put all these videos up. I try to put them on all those social media platforms when I upload them.
Yeah, and
So
I urge people to go take a look because they're short videos, but there's a lot of information that can be helpful to anyone who's struggling or doesn't even know what to do, and just good information to have in general. Um,
great.
I
Thanks,
think it's
Kat.
good to have. And I want to thank you, Mark, for sharing your experience, your
You're welcome.
story with us, and for all the work that you, your wife, and your firm are doing. I think it's wonderful. And, I'm going to have all your links in the show notes for your website, for your social media links. And please go follow Mark. Give him a listen. Go check him out. Give him a call. He's here to help. He wants to help. Everybody there wants to help at your firm. Um, and again, I love hearing from everybody. So if anybody has any feedback, you want to connect, my contact will be in the show notes. Feel free to reach out. And until next time, stay well, and I look forward to catching up with you next time.
Bye, everybody.